claim the First Amendment, but you wouldn't be shocked to find out that they learned it from a Syrian box. Auditors blinded by the self-important lies, and we all know why, that they just want some attention now. So here's a little shout out. They're frauditors without the slightest bit of common sense. Sub this channel and I'll clue you in. It's hard to believe that these people exist, trying to convince you they know how it is. But debunking bad science is what this creator shares. And your fish pal says that they just want some attention now. So here's a little shout out. They're frauditors without the slightest bit of common sense. Sub this channel and I'll clue you in. They just want some attention now. So here's a little shout out. They're frauditors without the slightest bit of common sense. Sub this channel and I'll clue you in. Sub this channel and I'll clue you in.
.250 metres to go. Fine Cotton still the leader. He's about a neck in front. Harbour Girls
in
coming
the three eastern states have shown at least 10 people are principal figures in the fine cotton ring-in.
The swap appeared to have been well
Inquiry
organised.
into the fine cotton substitution.
Could have netted more than $1 million for those who planned it.
Suppose will happen to the real fine cotton.
I fear the worst, but naturally hope for the best for the horse itself anyway.
Hey guys, and welcome to the much anticipated part 2 of the Fine Cotton Affair. The story of a group of clearly intelligent criminals who hatched a plan to run a much better horse by the name of Bold Personality in place of a relatively poor performer in Fine Cotton. Fine Cotton was a real trier, but he was fated to never really produce meaningful results. Their plan was to exploit the long odds on the Fine Cotton horse to place a substantial bet and take home a pile of cash by having Bold Personality race under Fine Cotton's name. Now, for all the juicy details of the story so far, please watch part 1. But this brief summary should be sufficient to aid in understanding of what occurred next. So when we left off, last time, we had poor old Bold Personality being prepared for his ring-in attempt. He had his poor bleeding nose long since fixed up in a roundabout sort of way. His soaking wet coat slowly drying, bandages around his feet, and wearing horseshoes not suited at all for the sort of racing he was to take part in. All in all, this poor thing has been put through a really tough time indeed. So, it's finally the big day. The conspirators bring Bold Personality into the Eagle Farm racecourse, where they kept him mostly covered in a blanket. An attempt to avoid anyone looking too closely at the difference in colour between Bold Personality and remembering Fine Cotton, I guess. They even brought in Fine Cotton himself, just in case, after the race, the fellas had the need to switch the horses around again. Now, I do feel sorry for Fine Cotton and quite annoyed with the gentleman involved. The poor thing essentially spent the entire day's horse racing in the horse float they brought him in the racecourse's car park. I guess they couldn't reasonably bring Fine Cotton into the course if their syndicate had only registered one horse in the day's events, but still, it's a bit of a rum go for poor Fine Cotton. So, anyway, the conspirators arrive at the course, and almost immediately the group had a collective heart attack as a summons was broadcast over the PA system as they arrived. Hayden Hightoner to the steward's office. Hayden Hightoner to the steward's office. Hayden, of course, being the trainer, was the one officially responsible for the horse. Anxious moment for sure. But as it turns out, the stewards only summoned Hayden to issue a massive fine of $2 for declaring the jockey for his horse after the cut-off time. Then, once they start to recover from this panic attack, they discover as they walk amongst the bookmakers taking bets for the day's events that something is very wrong. There has been a huge betting plunge on Flying Cotton while the lads were running around trying to paint their replacement. At this point, quote-unquote Flying Cotton, instead of being a hugely priced outsider at 33-1, the betting had reduced this price all the way down to 7-2. Flying Cotton, instead of being a high-priced outsider, was now the absolute favourite to win. So now I bet everyone watching is saying, Balimaar, hang on a minute. Surely the idea was to keep the price high. If the betting price has crashed down, that must mean someone had spread the word. But who? I would say in response, you are a smart cookie. You are quite correct that a scheme like this can only really work to its intended extent if everyone shuts their mouth. So, someone obviously did not. But who? Remember this guy from part 1? George Freeman. The man who basically controlled bookmaking in Queensland at the time. He spread the word amongst his contacts spread the word amongst their contacts, and so on and so on. By the end, practically the whole country knew about this. So our conspirators' heads, reeling no doubt at the pace this is all moving, but they were caught up amongst the flow of events. And then, one of them notices that the previous owner of Bold Personality, the guy they gave the dud check to, has come to Eagle Farm all the way from Coffs Harbour. So now these guys are, if they weren't already, in real strife. Let's face it, you can paint him red, you can paint his feet white and then bandage them, but if this previous owner was any real horse person at all, he is going to recognise his old horse from a mile away, isn't he? Now, I'll stress at this point that Bold Personality's previous owner had absolutely no idea about the ringing conspiracy. He just decided off his own bat to attend some horse racing in Brisbane that day. But our friends once again rely on the brains behind this scam, the big intellectual powerhouse that is John Gillespie. He approached the previous owner and dragged him off to the bar, and basically kept him there for the duration of the race. And just in case the former owner tried to watch the TV footage of the race in action, Gillespie positioned himself such that the man's view of the TV was blocked. So, as we discussed earlier, a lot of people came to know about Bold Personality being a ring-in for Flying Cotton for this race. Were there any special people among the crowd holding better tickets for Flying Cotton, you may ask? You bet there were. Chief of which were members of the local Queensland Police and their local fraud squad. Oh God. So then, finally, the big event itself.
Fine Cotton's kicking again on the inside. Fine Cotton and Harbour Gold. Fine Cotton's in front. They're drawing to the line. He's just in front. Fine Cotton, Harbour Gold lunge right on the line. They hit it all. Gee, this is close.
The race was so close that it went into a photo finish. Practically everyone at the track held their breath. Then, glory of all glories, Fine Cotton was announced as the race winner by a short half head.
And there was much rejoicing.
Huge props to Bold Personality, because let's face it, he's been through an absolute ordeal over the last few days. Dehydration, garden hoses being pulled out of his nose causing a nosebleed, being painted red, washed off, and made to race in the wrong sort of horseshoes, he still won. What a horse! So now our conspirators are no doubt having a celebratory beer in the full belief that it's all been worth it. All the work and stress. Well done, lads. You can relax now. Of course, their feeling of relief did not last too long. Because, behind the scenes, as you might have guessed earlier, something larger was happening behind the scenes. George Freeman. He sent a few of his own associates down to Eagle Farm, and they strategically planted themselves at the finish. Moments after the announcement that Fine Cotton had won, they started calling out, "Ring in! Ring in! Ring in!" The stewards finally performed a proper inspection and realised, you'll never believe this, Fine Cotton was not Fine Cotton. Now hang on. Surely George Freeman had money on Fine Cotton. Why would he do this? I'll give you guys 30 seconds to think about it. Let me know in the comments below what you think happened here. No cheating. So, why would George Freeman do this when he had money on Fine Cotton? Well, that's exactly the thing. He did not, in fact, place money on Fine Cotton at all. George Freeman essentially let the scam play out and placed his own bet on Harbour Gold, the horse that finished second. So when Fine Cotton was disqualified, Harbour Gold was promoted into first place. Freeman would have made quite a packet on that bet. With the betting plunge on Fine Cotton, the price on Harbour Gold drifted out as far as 5-1. Say what you will about the man, but I have to give Mr. Freeman my compliments on a finely executed screw job. The rumour mill says that Freeman won $1.5 million that day, and just about everyone else lost out. Meanwhile, amongst all the fuss and confusion of the chance of ring in, and the steward's investigation, Hayden Haitana jumped into the car and took off with the horse float carrying Fine Cotton, both of whom went into hiding for a few weeks. This set off a huge police investigation, of course. We can't let the police the public get scammed, especially to this extent.
The warrants that will be issued this afternoon will be just an action in a train, which I believe will be a long, drawn-out process to try and get to the bottom of the whole affair. It does involve a lot of people, and I tell you what, the police have done a tremendous amount of work in trying to solve and gain sufficient evidence to indeed bring justice, justice to be done when these people are finally brought to trial.
Eventually, Hayden Haitana was found all the way in Renmark, South Australia.
Yesterday, a man resembling Haitana aroused the suspicions of a shopper and 2 staff members at the Woolworths store in Renmark. Even behind a pair of dark glasses, Haitana had been recognised. Police closed in and at 6 p.m. sighted Haitana's vehicle parked outside the Truro Hotel and found him inside. Apparently he'd stopped for a drink, little realising how close he was to arrest. Security is tight because of the alleged threats on Haitana's life.
So we hear from this broadcast about fears for Hayden's life at this point. I do imagine that he was legitimately concerned about that, given how many people his attempted scam messed up. But there is slightly more to this tale, about something that happened some time before. Another horse racing trainer by the name of George Brown had been murdered earlier that same year. There was a lot of confusion around his death, and the crime has yet to be solved to this day. There is, in fact, a $1 million reward for information leading to the arrest of the culprit. All sorts of theories have been proposed as the cause, But the one most relevant to our story today is the question of if George Brown had been pressured into performing a similar ring-in scam, but said no to the wrong person. There was even a question mark on the royal family of Tonga, who fell under suspicion. One of our own bookmakers here in Australia, Bill Waterhouse, was at the time Tonga's honorary consul general to Australia at the time. I must stress though that no one has been accused of the murder of George Brown, and the investigation carries on to this day. So what happened to everyone involved in this?
Today, the AJC's committee found that bookmakers Bill and Robbie Waterhouse did have prior knowledge of the ring-in. 6 others were also found to have had prior knowledge of the ring-in. They were Roman Catholic priest Father Edward O'Dwyer, bookmaker Peter McCoy, bookmakers clerk Robert Hine.
Well, all the bookmakers named in that bit of sound were banned from attending horse racing tracks for life. Although the Waterhouses had their bans overturned in the 2000s and even had their bookmaker licenses again not long after. Father Ted, who led a huge betting plunge of his own, was warned off of racetracks for life. John Gillespie was sentenced to 4 years in jail. Hayden Haitana was sentenced to 12 months but served 6. Both gentlemen were warned off of racetracks for life. Hayden's ban from racetracks was overturned eventually in 2013. So what about Mick Sayers, the guy who warned George Freeman about this scam? What happened to him? Sayers was murdered 6 months later outside his own home by masked gunmen, and that killing was a result of Sayers trying to trick a dealer of certain illegal, hardcore, dangerous substances. Such men don't take to tricks, as he found out obviously. What about George Freeman? Almost nothing. He died in his bed in March 1990, quite peacefully actually. What about the horse, Bold Personality? Well, when the check our criminal geniuses paid his owner finally bounced, Bold Personality was returned to him. But sadly, the poor thing never raced again. And finally, the star of the show, Mr. Fine Cotton. What happened to him? Was he ever found? There was a nationwide horse hunt. He was searched for all over the place. And then, almost 3 months later, Fine Cotton was finally discovered at the Queensland Mounted Police paddock, grazing quite happily less than a couple miles from the Eagle Farm racecourse. Oh God. Oh, that's a good one. I love it. They seek him here, they seek him there. He was only 2 miles away. Oh, jeez. Well, anyway, Fine Cotton was purchased from Haitana by an Australian film producer by the name of John Staton. And Fine Cotton lived a decent life and died at a very, very respectable age for a horse at 33 years. So there we have it, everyone. Your first exposure to a true crime story in Australia. And that is the story of the Fine Cotton affair. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you want more true Aussie crime stories, do let me know in the comments below, and I'll do my best to find something suitable. Alright everyone, until next time, take care of yourselves, look after each other, and as far as humanly possible, keep smiling.